What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bios3 Raw TV. Today we're going to talk about the muscle that you think you had that you don't really have. Okay, now what does that mean? I get a lot of people when they start to diet that I know, not people that I train necessarily, well, some people that I train too, and that scale starts to come down, and they're like, oh man, I'm losing too much muscle. I'm like, how's your strength? They're like, oh, my strength is going up. Your strength is going up, okay? So, but you're losing too much muscle. How is that fucking possible? It's not possible. You're not going to be losing muscle if your strength is going up. One of the signs of muscle loss is weakness and flatness. You're not flat, you're losing fat. The problem is you thought you were actually bigger than you really are. And when you start to diet that fat off, you realize, fuck, I'm not as big as I thought I was. I'm kind of fucking small. What the fuck? And it messes with your head. Now, I'd say on average, typically, a light heavyweight competitor who the top of the class is 198 pounds, bottom of the class I believe is 178 or 179 or something like that. I forget where they're at now. I haven't been down that low since I was a teenager. But typically in the off-season, walk around at about 230 pounds. Now, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, wow, I'm moving up to the heavyweights. I'm 230 in the off-season, so I should be about 210 on stage. And they come down and they're about 190 pounds when they're done with their diet because they don't realize, you know, although the muscle looks full, you don't necessarily look fat. You're getting some good lighting and you look actually kind of, you know, leaner than you really are. You think you actually have more muscle than you really do. Now, yes, you got a bunch of water that's in the muscle. You're totally carved up. So, you know, you get that full round look to you and you step on a scale and you're sitting at that weight. But what you don't also realize is there's a lot of food sitting in your intestines. I call it intestinal mass. I mean, it's basically shit. I mean, that's what's in there. It's food that's digesting. It's sitting in there. And as you start to diet and you change those foods that whatever you're eating, the B230, you swap those foods out, you start changing to the cleaner foods or just reducing the foods. As that food starts to get processed and pushed out, the weight drops even faster. So now, technically, the scale's really dropping, and you're like, oh shit, well, I thought I was going to be this. Every single time I fucking stepped on a scale, every time I stepped on a scale for a show, I thought I was going to be at least 10 to 12 pounds heavier. Every single time. Except for, actually, you know what, that's not true. Except for one time at the Lehigh in 2010, I was figuring I was going to go in as a heavyweight. And when I got there, I saw the guys, and I was like, fuck, these guys are a lot bigger than I am. I can't even really compare to these guys. So it would be smarter for me to go to the light heavies, because at least those guys are similar to my structure, and I'll look better and fit in with them. I'll have a better chance at, you know, duking it out with them. Well, I figured, because my scale was off at the gym, that I was only a couple pounds away. Well, as it turned out, I was like fucking over 10 pounds over. So when I started to drop water and shit, I got on the scale, I was 206. This cutoff was 198. That's the only time in my life ever that I was actually heavier than I thought I was. Every other time, I think, I came down from 230, so 2006 at the body rack. I remember coming down from 230, and I thought for sure, I was like, man, I'm going to be easily like 205, 210, because I'm fairly good shape now when I'm dieted down, blah, blah, blah. I get on the scale, it was 193. When they said 193, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, how did that happen? Now, granted, I looked okay. I mean, I wasn't my most shredded of all time that I've been. I mean, up to that point I was. But again, you know, I was walking around 230 in the offseason. In 2009, I kept around 220 to 215, stayed a little bit closer to my goal weight, and I was able to drop down to that 198 with no problem. But I knew that to get to where I needed to be, I'd have to come back down to that 198. Now, a lot of guys, you know, will look at like people like the pros. And the pros, they're completely different animals than most of us. Let's face facts. They're not the average, they're not the norm, they're the genetic elite. But you got guys like, you know, Kevin English. Now, some people will be like, well, he's fucking stupid for fucking being, because he's 270 and comes down to 212 to compete in the fucking 212 Olympia. And people are like, he's fucking stupid. He's the best in the world several times over in the entire world. How the fuck can you say he did it wrong? So he's 270 and comes down to 212. You got guys that are typically 240, 245, 250 that come down to 212 to compete in that weight class. I mean, that's a lot of weight to lose, considering these guys don't look fat to begin with when they even start their diet, you know, let alone when they wind up finishing the diet, they're fucking shredded and boned out and sucked out, and they kind of fill back up. But the bottom line is, you know, the weight comes off. I don't think you guys realize how much, you know, for instance, I have bikini competitors, and I do what I call the pinch test. Now, basically, I turn them around, I pinch their lower back, pinch their shoulder blades, and I pinch the bottom of their ass where it inserts into the hamstring. So the bottom of the glute, and that's where you can get the most fat on any bikini competitor right there. And I'll squeeze that and I'll look at them and say, you got about 15, maybe 20 pounds to drop before the show. They look at me and they're like, fuck, I don't have 20, they're all like, I don't have 20 pounds. Where do I have 20 pounds? I have 20 pounds. I have like 2 pounds. I'm like, okay, don't listen to me. I mean, you're going to do the show? Yeah, okay, just do what I tell you to do. Stay away from the scale. We'll just watch it in the mirror. Next thing you know, we go to fucking weigh them in the week of the show. They're down 20 pounds. And like, I had no fucking clue that I even had 20 pounds on me. Once you pull the water, the intestinal mass, and the body fat, there's easily 20, 30 pounds. But as you start to pull that, you know, that water out, it's like steak. If you cut a piece of steak and weigh it, it's going to weigh a certain amount. It looks this big. You throw it on the grill, it shrinks up to this big. You take it out and weigh it, it weighs something differently. That's why you weigh it after cooking. Muscle tissue is the same way. When you start to reduce the body fat, you reduce water inside the muscle too. And everybody tries to say, well, you need to have the muscle full. Bullshit. You can't be shredded and have it full at the same time. That's very rare for an individual to nail that perfectly. But as the water starts to come out of the muscle, it's technically not real muscle tissue. It's water coming out of the muscle. The muscle shrinks up, the fat comes off. Next thing you know, you got a smaller individual who's like, oh, I lost all this muscle. But your fucking strength increased right up to the last week of the show. There's no fucking way you lost muscle. The problem is you didn't have as much muscle as you thought you did. In your mind, you probably had another 20 pounds of muscle on your frame or 10 pounds of muscle on your frame that you now found out was not there. And that's a mind fuck for you. And I understand that. And that's why this video is being made. So you now understand that no matter how big you are, unless you're already down to like single digits of body fat, even single digit body fat, if you're 8% and you're trying to compete, I guarantee another fucking 8 to 10 pounds comes off you before the show to be in shape like that. There was a video of Jay Cutler I remember watching. He was in Vegas training, I think at Gold's or Flamingo, where the fuck he was training. And he was posing. It was like, I don't know, 4 weeks out from the Olympia or something. And he looked ready. To me, I was like, holy shit, he's ready right now. And he's like, yeah, I got about another 12 to 13 pounds left to lose. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, where? Where is that weight going to come from? You know, and he's like, by the time I'm done dropping my water, I got a few more pounds of fat here. And I'm like, dude, he was right. He had dropped like almost another 15 pounds by the time the Olympia came. It was even more razor sharp, but that 15 pounds came off. He was right. And that's when I really started looking at things going, wait, you know, this is a trend that I've always had. I've always dropped more than I thought I dropped or thought I would drop. And by the people that are coming to me saying, well, I'm dropping too much muscle, you start to equate it and say, nope, you just didn't have the muscle you thought. You just, in your mind, you don't see it. And it takes a trained eye to see that sometimes. But just be aware, if you're starting to lose more weight than you think you should, and your strength is okay, you're not losing muscle. It's just the fat coming off that you didn't know that you didn't have as much muscle as you thought you did. Biosuptraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. www.biosuptraining.com is a blog, and where you don't have as much muscle as you thought, bicep, and we're out.